Hey, Mr. Chung, can I see a set of headphones? Aww. Kids, hey, welcome to the story of Mr. Chung. Try to believe it, it's a real story. So, the professor went to Hong Kong to have some headphones specially designed. It's the G3 units. And when I got to Hong Kong, the factory that we were having the headphones made at, I spoke with a man named Mr. Chung. Mr. Chung didn't really speak English very well, so when I asked him, hey, can you get me a set of headphones so I can check out the quality of the headphones? Mr. Chung said, aww, and then ran in the other room and got a cup of coffee. I don't think he spoke English very well. So, what the heck does that have to do with ACT English grammar rules? Let's go ahead and find out. So, as I tried to explain this odd story to a friend of mine, I soon realized that I bumped into several rules of grammar. Let's go ahead and take a look. So, if you look at Mr. Chung's eyes, when he closes his eyes, they kind of look like little M dashes. And an M dash is a grammar rule they don't teach in school. As Mr. Chung tilted his head back and said, aww, you can see his nostrils, which kind of look like two commas put together, which is called a comma splice. Then, Mr. Chung's mouth, on the side of his mouth, you can see that there's some skin folds over here, which kind of look like parentheses. So, Mr. Chung incorporates three rules of grammar: dashes, commas, and brackets. Let's go ahead and take a look at a demo. As I reviewed my rules of grammar, I looked at Mr. Chung's face, and I noticed that Mr. Chung's face entailed eyes, nose, and a mouth. Those are all facial features on his face. So when I looked at the grammar rules, I saw, hey, they're all the same thing. That means M dashes, commas, and parentheses all do basically the same thing. Let's go ahead and review the story of Mr. Chung. Mr. Chung, comma, a man in Hong Kong, comma, works at the headphone factory. We see that we've got double commas here. Double commas? What's between the double commas is non-essential information that separates the noun away from the verb. Mr. Chung, that's the noun, and what's the verb? Works. So this dependent clause that's non-essential, we could technically cross it out. But what's it there for? It's there to give you like a mini definition of the word right before it, which is just the noun simply. See how there's a comparison between the abandoned boxcar? Remember, dependent clauses define the word right before, which usually is a noun. We can cross it out in this case, and here's what the sentence now reads. Mr. Chung works at the headphone factory. That's two commas. Mr. Chung's nose. Let's continue with the story. Professor Thomas, dash, who wanted to see a sample set of headphones, dash, met Mr. Chung. There's our dashes. Mr. Chung's eyes. Remember, what's between the dashes, commas, and brackets is non-essential information that can be crossed out, number one. And number two, it gives you a mini definition of the word that's usually right before it, which is going to be most of the time a noun. Professor Thomas, a noun. Who is he? He wanted to see a sample set of headphones. That's who he is. When we cross out the non-essential dependent clause between the dashes, you see we still have a complete sentence. Professor Thomas met Mr. Chung. Met is our verb. M dashes. Same as double commas. Let's go ahead and take a look at sentence 3. The wild and crazy man, Mr. Chung, said, aww, bracket, a sound someone makes when they are confused, bracket, when Professor Thomas spoke too fast. There's brackets or parentheses. Remember, dashes, brackets, and parentheses are all going to give you the same thing. It's non-essential information that simply defines the word right before it. Take a look. It is aw. It's a thing. It's a sound. We cross it out, and now take a look. The wild and crazy man, Mr. Chung, said aw when Professor Thomas spoke too fast. When Professor Thomas spoke, that's our verb phrase right there. And here, aw, that's the noun. It's a thing. It's a sound. Remember, what's between brackets, commas, and dashes is extra non-essential information that leads you back to a mini definition of the word right before it, which usually is going to be a noun. Let's take a look at the rest of the story. So the sound aw, comma, something that sounds really weird and funny, comma, is made by Mr. Chung to pretend he understands something he doesn't. Double commas again. Mr. Chung's nose. So we know what's between the double commas or comma place can be crossed out because it's non-essential. But the real reason that we have it in there is to define the word that's right before, which usually is going to be our noun. Once again, aw, it's a sound. It's a noun. We cross it out, and here is the word is made. That's our verb. Let's spot check our work to make sure that it still works. When we cross out the non-essential information, we still have to have a complete sentence. So the sound aw is made by Mr. Chung to pretend he understands something he doesn't. Complete. Boom. Continue with the story. Do you dash, a student of Professor Thomas, dash, believe that Mr. Chung's story is real or made up? There's Mr. Chung's eyes again, the M dashes. What's between them can be crossed out. It's non-essential. It gives you more information about the word right before it, you, which is a pronoun. And when we cross it out, it's going to be a complete sentence still. Do you believe the Mr. Chung story is real or made up? Do you believe that's the verb here? And when we cross this out, it's still a complete sentence. And finally, let's look at the last part of our story. Try to believe this unusual, parentheses, and fantastic, unbelievable, parentheses, story because it really happened. What's between the parentheses or brackets is non-essential information that can be crossed out. 1. 2, it's a dependent clause. And dependent clauses, as we learned earlier in Abandoned Boxcar, define the word that's right before it. Here, we don't have a noun. It's unusual. But this is our noun. It's called a pronoun. So this goes together. This unusual, and fantastic, unbelievable. When something's unusual, it's unbelievable. See how it defines that? And here is going to be our noun once again. This word here, this is a pronoun. All right? And story, because it really happened, is our verb phrase here. So we have a segregation between the parentheses that defines what comes before it. It's non-essential information, so it could be crossed out, and it separates the noun away from the verb phrase. Let's take a look and spot check our work. Try to believe this unusual story because it really happened. Quick review, kids. Dashes, brackets, and commas are all doing the same thing. It presents you with non-essential information that separates the noun over here away from the verb. We can go ahead and cross that stuff out, but remember, what's between the dashes, commas, and parentheses is non-essential information that really just gives you a mini definition of the word that comes right before it, which usually is going to be a noun. Kids, thanks for watching the Mr. Chung story. See ya!